And now we talk about our final film this week. It's another 30th anniversary re-release, this time Chris Noonan's Babe, written by Chris Noonan and George Miller, the famous director and writer of the Mad Max series. Now, this film, of course, is very famous to me only because I used to see the trailer every time I put a videotape on. It wasn't a film I engaged with much as a child. The story of a, I guess, rescued piglet who then has aspirations to become a sheepdog. So it's really interesting that I didn't really have much of a connection. I have more of a connection to the second film, which I think I've seen more often, but not for a very long time. I really love the soundtrack of the second film. My favorite musician of all time, Peter Gabriel, provides his voice to a song by Randy Newman called That'll Do. That was nominated for the Oscar. And I love that song. But then again, I don't really have much of a connection to this film. And to be honest with you, viewers, just between you and me and Reuben over there, I actually think this film's a bit creepy looking back now and found it quite disturbing going back to this. However, you know, as a vegan, woke, posh boy, did it make me more vegan? It sort of solidified some of my beliefs, and I guess that's good. I know that it had a big impact in pork sales, this film. It went down by 20% after Babe came out. It was a roaring success when it came out. So, Babe, what did you think about this film?
Thanks, Babe. Yeah, so I thought that it was really, really creepy as well. I haven't watched this since maybe 2005. I used to watch both of the Babe films on hard rotation in my real youth. And I don't know why, because they both creeped me out so much. I remember having incredibly vivid, traumatic dreams, specifically about the monkeys in the second one. And I still haven't revisited film number 2, because I think it genuinely might still give me nightmares. But I think one of the reasons why Babe upset me so much is because it is a film that basically talks about the incredibly inexplicable decision that we as humans have made, that it's okay for us to kill pigs, but dogs are out of bounds. So Babe the pig becoming a sheepdog is basically a story about Babe having to be seen as a dog in order to not be murdered. And that's crazy for a 90-minute children's film. I was astonished by how dark this is. Visually, it is quite dark at times because they're, lighting around, to be fair, like astonishing animatronics. But it is also dark in subject matter. All of these animals are just always talking about how they're going to be slaughtered at some point. There's a really horrible sequence at the very beginning in which Babe is, as happens in real life, wrenched away from his parents, and they're going to go off and be killed, and that's life for a pig. So honestly, I was really shocked by this. I was kind of impressed by the fact that it was going into these kind of areas and into these moral conversations. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. And what I thought was really impressive about it is I do think that it actually manages to balance the tone quite well. I was invested in Babe becoming a sheepdog, and that's crazy. Because A, what a ludicrous story. I mean, a kind of incredible story, but it's not what you expect given how much the film is engaging with issues about animal rights, actually, and about the way in which, pigs and dogs, they have the same level of intelligence. They have the same sensibilities. They want to live just as much. And it's really striking, I think, that a film that's 30 years old was so boldly and so directly engaging with those themes. I think the animatronics are absolutely stunning.
The Jim Henson Workshop, my favorite thing ever, Jim Henson, and these great creature designs. It was the go-to. I can't believe that the workshop has sort of simmered down. I think that people should take note of all this great work that they had done. They did similarly great animatronics in a more modern film in Where the Wild Things Are, and I think that we really need a bit more of a blend between the CGI, which this film did win Best Visual Effects for, but also championing the idea of using animatronics. And yes, okay, they're often photographed in great shadow to sort of cover up maybe some of the lesser mobility of these designs, but it's just really clever filmmaking to therefore elevate something with another art form, another craft. And I think this film is a really good balance of the two. And I think that filmmakers should take note that, okay, it might be a bit more expensive or a little more troublesome, but it does have a greater result in the end.
Well, thanks for pointing that out, babe. I think you're so right. And I also really enjoyed the performance that James Cromwell gives. Because it's strange, I think I've really only seen him as villains. And so to see him playing a guy who actually, like, he looks quite sinister. And of course, let's not forget, he's literally like murdering the other animals on the farm all the time. So in many ways, he is the villain of the piece. But I thought that he comes around to this idea of, okay, Babe being more than just a pig. I mean, full transparency, I'm a lifelong vegetarian. I've never eaten meat. I don't believe in eating animals. But I just thought that, you know, his kind of character arc and the way that he kind of softens towards Babe, and then the way that they become this kind of dynamic duo taking on the sheepdog contest, and Babe's a pig, but hey, we'll just put down pig as a nickname on the entrance. I just thought it was fun. There's a great bit where he does an Irish jig, and it's completely random, but it's quite endearing. So honestly, like, I was pleasantly surprised by this film. I thought it was bolder than I remembered it being. I thought it was absolutely as creepy as I remember it being, maybe more so because there's definitely a little bit of the uncanny valley in some of those animatronics and in some of the kind of the visual effects where they're animating the mouths of the dogs. And I was also impressed by the way that it manages to weave those stories together into a really, I think, crowd-pleasing underdog sports drama, really, about a sheepdog contest. So honestly, real hats off to this film. 30 years on, I think it still looks pretty gosh darn good. Those effects I don't think have aged badly at all. And to be honest, I was a bit depressed thinking, okay, if they made this today, it would probably be entirely CG. And there is definitely a loss there. The way that they're using real animals for so much of it. They're only using the animatronics when they need to. They're only using the visual effects when they need to. I think just gives it so much of a grounding in real life. And I think it facilitates more of that emotional connection with the animals. Because you absolutely love Babe, I think. Anyway, I think you fall in love with these animals and you open your hearts to them. And it's quite moving in that respect. And what I can't believe and what I keep coming back to is just that this is a film that absolutely is pointing at the audience and saying, you are complicit in the murder of all of these animals who are as intelligent as dogs, and they absolutely want to live. And that's crazy. And I'm not surprised that this massively drove up vegetarianism. It made James Cromwell himself become a vegetarian and start talking about, you know, how it's wrong to kill animals. And I just think that's fascinating. You know, this film is culturally and historically significant. And now I want to watch Babe 2, Pig in the City, because I have no idea where this story goes, because I can't remember it. But if it continues to sort of mine these themes and these ideas within a family-friendly context, that's fascinating.
Well, Babe, to relate it to the film I just previously talked about, I think that Babe achieves success through kindness and passing on goodwill, which is another great story. So not only does it really thrive on its veganism, which I would say it's, and I think even James Cromwell might have even gone further than vegetarian after this film. I think he possibly turned vegan from what I remember reading, and became a really outspoken advocate. And you are right, he's incredible in this film, a really understated. It gives very few lines, as is with the character, but it's just so emotive through his own journey. It's very, very nuanced for a children's film. But I like the way that Babe achieves his success through very quiet and very charming, a pursuit of kindness and understanding. And I think that's very rooted in the Gospels, and it's rooted in this film. Really does bode well that Babe is an incredibly cute pig. And I think this, as I had a bit of a trouble with the previous film being able to connect to younger audiences, this with its huge connotations of systemic farming and systemic animal slaughter, and then also the idea of social grace and social kindness and obedience, and all these big, and also, traversing, stereotypes, even in a way, you're just a pig, or you're a duck, or you're a horse, or whatever. No, it's all these huge moral issues. This film could be seen as our favorite, as you and I are, babe, woke, but it delivers it so effectively. I have a little problem with the uncanny valley of talking animals in general, but, it is successful because it's so well crafted. It's so neatly edited and built and put in a way that is accessible that, as you're right, it balances tone relatively neatly. So I think, yes, it really is a really effective way of telling moral stories. And I think we need a bit more of a better approach to it, so that films like Snow White, that people assume are telling moral stories in a very negative way to the greater public, which really aren't, are replaced with films like Flow, like Babe, that actually tell really nuanced and deep stories in a way that is effective because they are good films and they are solid and they have a bit for everyone. And I think this film does that really well. And so I'll just say, that'll do, babe. That'll do.